Palworld was one of the biggest games of 2024. It exploded overnight, got called Pokémon with guns, broke player records, and sparked endless arguments online. But after the initial hype died down, a lot of people started asking the same question. Was Palworld actually a good game, or was it just a viral trend? Now, 2 years later, the game has finally left early access with its full 1.0 release on PS5. And that makes this the perfect time to revisit it because PlayStation players are no longer getting an unfinished experiment. After 2 years of updates, controversy, and a legal battle with Nintendo that's still ongoing, was the wait for Palworld on PS5 worth it? When Palworld launched back in January 2024, it immediately grabbed everyone's attention. At first glance, people focused on the obvious comparison. You could catch creatures that looked somewhat familiar and you could use them in combat. And that led to the Pokémon with guns nickname, which was probably the best free marketing the game could have received, you know? But the more people played it, the more they realized it wasn't trying to be a traditional Pokemon game. Palworld mixed together a bunch of different genres: creature collecting, survival, crafting, base building, automation, multiplayer, and open world exploration. You could capture pals, put them to work in mining resources, building factories, farm materials, craft weapons, and explore a huge world with friends. It felt less like a Pokemon clone and more like someone took ideas from Pokemon Arc, Rust, Zelda, and kinda threw them in a blender, and somehow it worked. That combination created a really addictive gameplay loop. You'd go out exploring, finding a new pal, bringing it back to your base, use it to gather resources faster, unlock better technology, then head out again to explore even further. The problem was that the game launched in early access, which pretty much meant it was unfinished. For the last 2 years, Pocket Pair has been updating Palworld constantly. They added new pals, new islands, more bosses, additional weapons, better combat systems, base building improvements, and a few other things. A lot of people who tried Palworld during the first few weeks experienced a game that was fun but rough around the edges. Bases could be frustrating to manage, progression wasn't always balanced, and some systems felt clearly unfinished. Version 1.0 is supposed to be the point where those systems finally come together into a complete package. So if you're a PS5 player who initially waited for full release, you're skipping the messy early access period and jumping straight into the version that has benefited from 2 years of feedback from millions of players. Pocket Pair clearly isn't treating Palworld like a one and done success. They recently announced Palworld Online, a new mobile MMORPG being developed in partnership with Garena that's set to release in 2026. Instead of simply porting the original game to phones, it's been built as its own multiplayer experience with creature collecting, crafting, PvE, PvP, and co-op gameplay. Whether it ends up being as good as the main game remains to be seen, but it shows just how much confidence Pocket Pair has in the Palworld brand. And of course, we cannot talk about Palworld without talking about Nintendo. Shortly after Palworld became a massive hit, Nintendo and the Pokemon Company filed a lawsuit against Pocket Pair. A lot of people assume the lawsuit was simply because the creatures look too much like Pokemon, but the situation is actually more complicated. The lawsuit is primarily focused on patent claims related to gameplay mechanics, not on whether the Palworlds resemble Pokemon characters. The case is still ongoing, so nobody really knows the final outcome yet. What's interesting is that some legal experts have suggested that even if Nintendo wins part of the case, the financial damages being discussed are relatively small compared to how successful Palworld has already become. And personally, I think the legal drama has become a bigger conversation than the game itself. For months, online discussions were dominated by arguments about whether Palworld should exist, whether Nintendo was being overly aggressive, and what it meant for the industry. Meanwhile, the developers kept updating the game. They kinda don't really care. So let's talk a little bit about the game itself. The biggest strength of Palworld is progression. The game is constantly giving you something to work towards, like trying to catch a rare pal, wanting to expand your base, unlocking a new piece of technology. That steady sense of progression is what makes it easy to lose track of time. The world is surprisingly large and varied. The different regions contain different pals, resources, and environmental challenges, so exploration feels rewarding rather than just empty open world wandering. Finding a new biome usually means finding new creatures and new crafting opportunities. Your pals are battling workers, Some are better at mining, some at farming, some at transporting materials, some at generating electricity, and so on. As your base grows, it starts to feel less like a camp and more like a functioning production facility. Watching your pals automatically harvest resources, craft items, and keep the base running is genuinely satisfying. Playing with friends makes a huge difference as well. Exploring together, tackling bosses as a group, and building a shared base adds a layer of chaos and fun that's hard to replicate in single player. Even if you play primarily solo, it's easy to see how Palworld can become such a popular co-op game. Now, I don't want to pretend like the game is perfect because it definitely isn't. If you're looking for a deep, emotional, engaging narrative, Palworld is not going to be that game. The story exists, but it's not the main attraction. The game is much more systems driven than story driven. A lot of your time is spent gathering resources, crafting items, managing storage, and optimizing production. If you already dislike survival crafting games, Palworld is unlikely to change your mind. And I do think it can be a bit grindy. As your base becomes more complex, keeping everything organized can start to feel like work. You'll occasionally spend significant time dealing with logistics rather than exploring or fighting. That's not necessarily a flaw for people who enjoy management systems, but it's worth mentioning. The good news is that the PS5 version benefits from all of the optimization that happened during early access period. Performance is noticeably better, more stable than the early PC builds were at launch, and the game generally feels much more polished than the version many people saw in 2024. Load times are reasonable, controls translate well to a controller, and the overall experience feels like a proper console release rather than a rough PC port. So should you buy Palworld on PS5 right now? It definitely depends on the type of player you are. You'll probably have a great time if you like survival crafting games, base building, automation systems, open world exploration, or co-op multiplayer experiences. One thing that does make this recommendation a bit easier is the price. Pocket Pair kept the price at $29.99 even after early access, which is way cheaper than a lot of modern PS5 releases. For a game that can easily provide dozens or hundreds of hours of gameplay, that's a pretty strong value proposition. And considering Palworld has attracted tens of millions of players across platforms, it's clearly more than just a short-lived internet fad. They pretty much survived the hype cycle, and we've all seen it before. A lot of games explode in popularity for a few weeks and then disappear. And I could name a few of those. Palworld had to survive enormous expectations, constant comparisons to Pokémon, non-stop online debate, and an ongoing legal battle with one of the biggest gaming companies in the world. But what do you guys think about Palworld? Have you played it, or are you looking to buy it anytime soon? Don't forget to let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Pause for now, play forever. AK out.